At Steel Peak Sports, your game is just the beginning. We simplify the complex: cash flow, investments, taxes, and the years after the jersey comes off. We treat your goals as our own, a wealth strategy as disciplined as you are. It's time for Steel Peak Sports.
Let me be honest with you about something. The phrase passive income has been turned into one of the most misleading concepts in personal finance. I see it all over social media: the gurus, the courses, the promises of income streams that will fund your lifestyle while you sleep. And here's the truth. Some of those strategies are real, some are exaggerated, and many are outright dangerous if you pursue them without understanding what you're actually getting into. I work with high net worth clients who have genuine passive income streams, and I want to tell you what passive income actually looks like at the highest levels and what it actually takes to build it. Because here's what frustrates me about the way this gets sold. The people promising you effortless income are almost never showing you their own balance sheets. They're showing you a rented car and a screenshot of a good month. The clients I work with who actually live on passive income don't talk about it that way at all. They talk about decades of disciplined decisions. They talk about the boring years. So let me strip away the marketing and tell you how this really works. First, let me give you the definition I actually use. Passive income is income generated from capital or systems that doesn't require your direct, ongoing labor. Notice I said capital or systems. That's the key. There is no such thing as passive income that requires no upfront investment of money, time, or both. Anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. The question is whether that investment is worth making and whether the returns are real and sustainable. So let me walk you through the legitimate forms of passive income I see working in practice, and I'll be specific about what each one actually requires. The first and most accessible: investment income from a well-structured portfolio. Dividends from equities, interest from bonds, distributions from real estate investment trusts. These are real, genuine forms of passive income. They require no active labor once the portfolio is constructed. You make intelligent allocation decisions, you rebalance periodically, and the portfolio generates income. This is the foundation of passive income for most high net worth investors. It's not glamorous, but it works. A $3 million portfolio generating a 4% annual yield produces $120,000 per year in passive income. That's a real number with real impact. Now let me make that more concrete, because the headline yield isn't the whole story. Where you hold that capital matters enormously. If those dividends are qualified dividends held in a taxable account, they're taxed at long-term capital gains rates, meaningfully lower than ordinary income for most people. If that same income is interest from bonds, it's generally taxed as ordinary income, unless we're talking about municipal bonds, where the interest may be free from federal tax and sometimes state tax as well. So two portfolios that both show a 4% yield on paper can leave you with very different amounts of actual spendable income after tax. This is the kind of thing the gurus never mention, because 4% yield sounds clean, and a conversation about tax-efficient asset location does not sell courses. But it's the difference between keeping $90,000 of that $120,000 and keeping $75,000. Over a decade, that gap is enormous. The key is building the asset base first. You can't extract passive income from capital you don't have. This is why everything I talk about regarding disciplined saving, long-term compounding, and smart tax management matters so much, because it is the path to building the capital base that generates passive income. The portfolio is the engine, but you have to build the engine before it can run. The second form: real estate income. Owning income-producing real estate, rental properties, commercial real estate, net lease structures, is one of the oldest and most proven forms of passive income. Done correctly, the property generates rent, the rent covers your mortgage and expenses, and the net cash flow is yours. Over time, the property also appreciates, and you benefit from both the income and the equity growth. And there's a tax dimension here that's genuinely powerful: depreciation. The tax code lets you deduct a portion of the building's value each year as a paper expense, which can shelter a meaningful part of your rental income from tax, even while the property is actually appreciating in value. That combination, cash flow, appreciation, and tax efficiency, is why real estate has built so much multi-generational wealth. But here's what I want to be clear about. Direct real estate is not entirely passive. There are tenants, there are maintenance issues, there are capital improvements, there are market cycles that affect occupancy and rent rates, there are regulatory and tax considerations that require ongoing attention. It's less active than running a business, but it's not truly passive, especially at scale. Let me give you a realistic example. Say you buy a rental property for $500,000, put $125,000 down, and it rents for $3,000 a month. That's $36,000 a year in gross rent. Sounds great. But your mortgage, property taxes, and insurance might run $2,200 a month. Then you have maintenance, the occasional repair, property management if you don't want to handle it yourself, and, critically, vacancy. If that unit sits empty for 2 months while you find a new tenant, your annual cash flow can evaporate. And if you're not capitalized to carry the mortgage through that gap, a passive income property quickly becomes a source of real stress. The people who succeed in real estate are the ones who underwrite conservatively, keep reserves, and treat the vacancy and repair risk as real rather than theoretical. Many high net worth clients who want real estate exposure without the direct management burden invest through private real estate funds or REITs, which provide the income and appreciation potential of real estate with significantly less operational involvement. You give up some control and some upside, but you also give up the $2 phone call about a broken water heater. Third, private credit and alternative lending structures. This is an area that has grown significantly in recent years. Lending directly to businesses or through structured private credit vehicles can generate attractive income, often in the range of 8 to 12%, sometimes more, depending on the risk structure. For qualified investors, these can be meaningful income generators, but I want you to sit with what that yield is actually telling you. A 10% yield is not a free lunch. The market is pricing that return because the underlying risk is higher. The borrower is less creditworthy, the loan is less liquid, or the structure carries risks that a simple bond doesn't. When a recession hits and businesses struggle to service their debt, that's exactly when those higher-yielding loans come under stress. The due diligence requirements are substantial, the credit risk is real, and the liquidity is limited. Your capital may be locked up for years, with no ability to pull it out early. This is not a strategy for capital you might need on short notice, and it's not a place to chase yield just because the number looks better than what your savings account pays. Fourth, royalties and intellectual property. For business owners and creators, this one is relevant. If you've built something that generates ongoing royalties, a book, a licensing arrangement, a patent, a piece of software, that can be a genuine passive income stream. The upfront work to create the asset is substantial. The ongoing income, once established, can be meaningful. This is the category that the social media gurus reference most often when they talk about passive income, and it's real. But the path to it is almost always far more work-intensive than it appears. For every author earning steady royalties, there are hundreds who wrote a book that sells a few copies a month. For every piece of software generating recurring revenue, there's an enormous amount of building, marketing, and maintenance behind it. The income can be beautifully passive once it exists. Getting it to exist is often a years-long active project with no guarantee of success. Now, here's the thing I want you to understand about all of these. The word passive describes the ongoing nature of the income, not the effort required to build the underlying asset. Every legitimate passive income stream is built on top of a foundation of active work. Either the active work of earning, saving, and investing capital over time, or the active work of building a system, a property, or an asset that then generates income on an ongoing basis. The danger I see is when people pursue passive income shortcuts that skip the foundation. They take on debt to buy rental properties they can't afford to carry through a vacancy period. They invest in high-yield structures they don't fully understand because the return number is attractive. They pour time and money into passive income businesses, courses, dropshipping, affiliate marketing that are presented as effortless, but are actually extremely competitive and require significant ongoing attention to produce meaningful results. And let me name the most common mistake I see, because it underlies almost all the others. People chase the income before they've built the capital. They get the order backwards. They see that a portfolio can generate $120,000 a year. And instead of focusing on building the $3 million that makes that possible, they go looking for a shortcut that promises the $120,000 without the $3 million. That shortcut doesn't exist. What does exist is a long list of products designed to take advantage of people who believe it does. My framework for thinking about passive income is this: build the balance sheet first. I've talked about this in other conversations. The shift from selling your time to deploying your capital. That shift doesn't happen overnight, and there's no shortcut. You build it through disciplined saving, intelligent investing, and compounding over time. Once you have a meaningful asset base, the passive income options become real and they become attractive. If you're focused on passive income before you've built a solid balance sheet, you're likely chasing yield in places where the risk doesn't justify the return. Get the foundation right, build the capital base, and then let the passive income follow from the assets you've built, not from trying to shortcut the process. The truth about passive income is that it's real, it's powerful, and it's one of the most important financial goals you can have. But it's earned through disciplined financial behavior over time, not through a $497 course that promises to change your life in 30 days. Let me also address the specific question of how you sequence the move toward passive income in your own financial life, because I think the sequence matters as much as the strategy. The first stage is income maximization and disciplined savings. You are generating earned income from your career or business, and you are systematically converting a portion of that income into investable capital. This stage is primarily about discipline. You're not yet generating meaningful passive income, but you're building the foundation. This is often the most psychologically difficult stage because the rewards aren't visible yet. Compounding takes time to become apparent. You can save diligently for 3 or 4 years and feel like nothing is happening, and that feeling is exactly why most people quit and go looking for a shortcut. The ones who win are the ones who keep going through the boring stretch because they understand that the boring stretch is where the foundation gets poured. The second stage is capital deployment. As your investable assets grow, you begin allocating to productive assets, equities, real estate, private investments that generate returns. You're reinvesting those returns rather than spending them, which accelerates the compounding. The passive income exists, but it's being reinvested, not lived on. This is the stage where the snowball starts to gain mass. The returns your capital generates begin to generate their own returns, and for the first time, the growth starts to feel like it has a life of its own that isn't entirely dependent on what you contribute from your paycheck. The third stage is passive income as meaningful supplemental income. Your capital base has grown to the point where the returns are material. You might be generating $50,000 or $100,000 annually in passive income. This doesn't replace your earned income, but it provides meaningful financial flexibility. It starts to change the feeling of financial security in a tangible way. This is often where people first exhale. The fear that dominated the early years starts to loosen because you can see that your assets are now doing real work on your behalf. The fourth stage, which not everyone needs or seeks, but which is worth understanding, is when passive income exceeds your living expenses. This is what people mean by financial independence. Your capital works harder than you do. Your labor becomes optional in a financial sense. You work because you want to, because you find meaning in it, not because you have to. Most people who reach stage 4 don't do so by finding clever, passive income hacks. They do so by being disciplined savers and intelligent investors over long periods of time. That's the honest truth about how it's done. The ones who get there fastest are almost never the ones who chase the highest yields. They're the ones who avoided the big mistakes, stayed invested through the hard years, and let time and compounding do the heavy lifting. So build the foundation, deploy the capital intelligently, be patient with the compounding, and let the passive income follow from the asset base you've built, not from shortcuts that promise to skip the hard work. That's the honest version.